can promise. And in my time, I've seen that most ideas, and we're going to talk about a lot of ideas which I have come across my life, um, of how they have come about with these concepts, right? So the topic, as it says, right, is critical thinking using mental models. Mental models are another very interesting aspect. It's a part of critical thinking. So we'll get to that hopefully today, or else we'll have a follow-up session on that. So, as usual, we'll all communicate over chat. If you want to speak up, I'm happy to talk to you also on the call. But I think most of you will be comfortable typing, so we can use the chat window. So before you go on, maybe you share your thoughts, guys. Have you heard about this term called critical thinking? And what is it? Any thought? And no wrong answer is a wrong answer, because it's not like there's a perfect answer to these questions, right? But any thoughts on what do we mean by critical thinking? Don't be shy at all, because um, this is your time to actually be interactive, learn. There's no mistakes. It's all, once you get into the industry, you don't get time to do this. Very nice, Satish. Analyzing and making the right decisions. Yes, correct. Part of it is correct. Now, Satish, the interesting part is, I might ask you, what is analyzing and what is right? Correct? Because once one person's right can be another person's wrong. So how do you know what is right? This is also an interesting question, isn't it? But your answer is not incorrect. But there are layers to that, right? And before I analyze something, how do I know what to analyze in the first place? How do I get to that point, right? So partly you're absolutely correct, but we need to also learn how to get to that point where I know what I'm analyzing, making judgments. Yes, Mohammed. So judgment is an interesting word. We are going to judge, but not deep thinking, not judge without validation, right? We have to justify everything. I cannot just make a decision or judge something without justifying it, right? So yes, answer is partially again correct. Deep thinking about anything, any topic. Yes, Pruta. But the interesting part is, what is deep, right? I mean, my deep thinking concept might be very different than yours, right? Correct. So while your answer is correct, if I ask you the next question, if I ask myself the next question, that how do you define deep thinking, I would assume that my answer might be different than yours, right? So that's an interesting one, right? But answer is again partially correct, right? So if you think about it, right, it's not that easy, right, to define what is critical thinking, but all of us know it is important, because finally the end goal is for us to get to a solution or a result which we can go back and justify, and there is a thought process behind it which is actually going back to the problem, right? Now, what hampers us, right? I mean, there are many things which can hamper us from doing this. So it will be interesting to learn that if it is so straightforward, why would 90% plus of the people of the world not be able to do this properly? Because I can promise you, in my lifetime, right, I have seen very, very few people who are good at this. And that got us thinking, saying that, wait a second, we should spend time on this and learn. Because naturally saying that I am good critical thinker actually doesn't work. You have to practice it. You have to actually learn techniques to do it. So our session is for that. Okay. But long story short, I can tell you very few people can do it whom I have come across. So let's just try to see what will stop me from doing it, right? So let's just start on this thread. So we talked about what critical thinking is, and I'll let you read this, but this is just theory. It's a textbook definition, and we don't do theory here. But I just put it across, and just for you guys to take a look, okay? And the last sentence, right? Never give knee-jerk reactions. Read, hold, research, because as humans, right, we are prone to doing instinctive decisions by instinct, right? So when very rare people instinctively can make correct decisions. For most of us, we need to step back and take stock of what I'm saying, what I'm going to decide, and do these things: read, hold, research, so on and so forth, to get to that point. Okay, but this is a textbook definition. Let's not even worry about that. But I just put it across so that you guys are understanding what the dictionary out there says, right? Okay, we talked about this. Why is it so useful? Very obvious stuff, right? It is useful because it helps us make better decisions, stronger arguments, solving problems, so on and so forth. And without critical thinking, we obviously might make instinctive but wrong decisions. Yeah. So I don't think any of us are going to argue about the importance of critical thinking. Is there anybody on this call who feels that critical thing is an overrated thing. Why are we learning about it? Why is it even a topic for which we are going to talk for hours, right? Or if anybody has a question that why does it matter in the real world? Does anybody have such questions? And don't feel shy. You want to challenge it. No problem. But does anybody have a question about why even give it so much importance? Is there anybody on the call who wants to ask that question? Probably not, yeah. So because that means all of us are convinced it is important. We just have to learn how to do it now, right? So I'll rather than giving you the answer, let's just do this, simple case study, right? So let's say, and this is a problem, all of you guys. So what all cities do you guys stay in? Just type the cities or towns or villages wherever you come from. Can some quickly let me get a sense of geographically where you're from? Madurai, okay, okay. You can give me your hometowns. Your college might be in one place, but what are your hometowns? Hosur, Gunj, okay, great. Karur, Kanyakumari, nice. Erode, Tuticorin, okay. Koilpatti, okay, okay. Tirupur, more from Erode, okay. More for Tuticorin, okay. How about the Vishwakarma guys? Where are you guys from? I mean, I know Vishwakarma is in Pune. You guys from different places in Maharashtra, or everybody's from Pune? Uti, lot of places on the south. Very nice. Good spread. Okay, very good. So you guys are from various places, but would you agree that the problem I put in front of you can be common across most places in Dhaka? Very nice. Welcome, Mithila. Very nice. Yeah. Traffic congestion in Indian cities. I'm saying cities, but let's not look at cities, right? Traffic congestion in Indian towns, cities, anywhere is a major issue, right? Would everybody agree that, give me a thumbs up if you guys agree that this is an issue in India in general, traffic congestion, right? If you guys believe that this is an issue, give me a thumbs up, right? Nobody would disagree with that, right? So if I ask you the question, right, what is the most effective solution to reduce traffic? Give me some ideas. Give me some ideas. You can type your idea. Circle, I didn't get that, but type a little more. So give me some ideas on how we can reduce traffic congestion in Indian cities. Some idea, any idea which comes to your mind, or manage traffic congestion. But this is not a complicated technical problem, right? I mean, these are like, we experience this every day, right? So you will have some thoughts. I'm sure when you're driving your two-wheeler, walking, going in a car, whatever, or going by bus, train, you must be noticing this congestion. You're saying, yeah, what if we do this? What if we do that? Using improving public, very nice, perfect. Following traffic rules, yes, Mohammed, perfect. So people should follow traffic rules. Better management rules, yes. So traffic management rules should be better in India, perfect. People need driving discipline, yes. So people should learn how to drive on the roads before they are given allowed even to drive on the road. So strict implementation of driving discipline, I would agree, right? So better management, following traffic rules, people need to driving discipline, using public transport more, I would agree. More ideas, guys. All of you guys are pretty smart people. Autonomous vehicle technology. Wow. Yes, Aditya. I mean, there are some ways to go, but yes, why not? Smart traffic management system will identify the traffic congestion and the traffic light will change. Yes. So rather than static traffic lights, what if you have dynamic traffic lights? So basically, better traffic management systems. AI integration with traffic light. Okay. All right, Samarth. Traffic circles in which vehicle. Oh, okay. All right. So you are saying more circles now. Yeah, why not? I mean, there are pros and cons, but yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah. Some more ideas. So I got like a few already, right? Some people want to use technology. Some people want to do better traffic management. Some people are saying, yeah, let's use public transport more and more. Some people are saying the discipline has to go up. Better infrastructure, absolutely. So a lot of places roads are not in good condition, right? So what if we improve the roads, right? Improve the road quality. That might help smooth flow of traffic, right? What else? What else? Think. Think what has come to your mind when in the past, when you have been caught in traffic jams. What should happen to manage traffic better? blinking of numbers. Okay, so some traffic signals have these numbers which tell you how long the traffic signal is going to be on. So increase them. They are already there in many places, but increase them, which will help the traffic at the traffic lights more and more. Odd and even number plate system. Okay, Akram, what you're saying is some cities that tried this where odd and even. So some days only odd number plate vehicles are allowed. Other days even. So some people cannot bring out their car on certain days. Some people cannot do it on other days. Yeah, sure. What else? Maybe 2-3 more ideas. Come on, I got like what, 10 ideas? There are many people on the call. I'm sure you guys have thought through more ideas. All of you are smart people, smart engineers. What else? What else can be done for traffic congestion issues? Better management of vehicles by traffic. Okay, so train our traffic police better, right? So if the traffic police are better, they'll manage traffic better, right? So better management of vehicle by traffic police. Yes. Flyovers, very nice, very nice. Build flyovers because most of the time congestion happens at intersections. So if you do flyovers, you'll bypass the intersections. Yes, very good. That is happening in many places. Not enough, of course, but it's happening. So maybe increase that, increase the pace of that. Right? One more. One more. So I got a few, and all incorrect, all correct solutions. None of them are incorrect. Betterment of metro. Yeah, somebody mentioned public transport, but metro can be another, some engaging activities can be placed in traffic so that people do not feel stressed. Correct, correct, correct. Very good. So basically people get irritated, agitated. On that, by the way, guys, on a totally different note, let me ask a very I thought of something, and this kind of solutions have been tried in the world, by the way. So do you know lifts, right? Lift which goes up a building, down a building. Have you seen? Are you guys, do you guys agree that most of lifts or elevators have mirrors inside? Have you seen that? How many people believe that there are most elevators have mirrors inside them? Give me a thumbs up if you guys have seen a mirror in an elevator or a lift. Yeah. Why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Why should there be a mirror? Why should there be a mirror inside a lift? Right? I mean, it's such a short journey. Why do you need a mirror? Why do you think they put mirrors? Any ideas? See, because I told you, right, critical thinking, right? So somebody thought of something to pass the time. What does that mean? To give something to, yeah, I agree, Charan, correct, to look at something. But tell me, if the mirrors were not there, what would people do? If mirrors were not there inside the lift, because mirrors definitely distract you when you get in, right? You start looking at yourself, right? Correct? It gets boring. And what would you do if you're bored in a lift? In a lift, you get bored, what will you do? Yeah, you might fear, correct? Might get reduces anxiety, yes, because you're distracted, because a lift is like a closed box. But what will you do? What will you do if you're not distracted and you're anxious? What will you do in a lift usually? There is something people always do when they're anxious, fidgety, and bored, or don't know what to do. Maybe start, yeah, they can. And what will they do? Press all buttons. Priyank, perfect. So apparently the lift manufacturers notice that when people are inside the lift and they're not distracted, they'll keep pressing those buttons, and buttons started getting spoiled, right? So they put the mirror. So mirrors came as a solution for that. Just like somebody in that said, right, in traffic signals, distract them. The numbers 1, 2, 3, or 30, 29, 28, those are actually done so that we are distracted. So we don't keep honking and we don't disturb others. We don't get agitated, right? So somebody did a lot of critical thinking and figured out, if I do this, right, it's not the amount of time the person is there, it's his agitation. Yeah. I thought it was a wonderful, it's a very beautiful solution to a very complex problem, which is, I'm getting bored, I'm going to create. It's the lift company noticed, and most of the in their lifts they're installing, the buttons are getting spoiled. So they came up with this solution. Yeah. Okay. So I got a lot of good solutions from you. Yeah? Now, maybe would you agree that these are the kind of the solutions you guys gave? Like, we need more flyovers. Somebody mentioned that, right? We need more flyovers that will solve the problem. Foreign countries, people didn't mention, but I heard many students saying that why are we trying to reinvent the solution, right? People have solved it in the world. They just copy what they're doing, right? More cars. A lot of people have said that there are bigger problems with cars. Too many cars. So we should manage car sales. Let's just figure out, like somebody gave a solution about odd and even. What if we say that cars are getting sold too much? Let's stop allowing the cars on the road too much. So maybe odd even is the solution, right? Traffic data shows that accidents are increasing, causing also. We need stricter punishment for. So people talked about police implementing discipline more. A lot of people came up with this solution, right? Seeing all cars stuck in road makes me frustrated. So some people are go to the extreme and say, let's do something dramatic, drastic, right? Let's just do something where people may not like it, but it's okay. It's unpopular, but let's just do it because it's so bad, right? Or two-wheelers, some people blame two-wheelers, say two-wheelers cause all those problems. They navigate through and I have to continuously brake, and two-wheelers are the biggest problem, right? Would you agree that these are the kind of the solutions we discussed? Would you agree? Yes? Give me a thumbs up if you guys agree. That are these the kind of solutions we discussed? Now, the topic is critical thinking, right? So actually, this is a real problem. There are departments in every city, town, municipality who continuously work on this problem. So the many critical thinking solutions that come out of this. So for example, you guys might have heard about BRTS. Have people heard about BRTS? Like the dedicated lane for buses, right? It was done by this mayor in Colombia from Bogota, who came up with that solution. Metros, somebody came up with the metros. Well, various solutions have come about, correct? But a lot of these, right? Now, when we come up with a solution, one of the challenges with not doing critical thinking is a lot of things can be very instinctive, right? Like I'm frustrated, so I'll say, you know what, let's do something drastic, right? Somebody else who drives a two-wheeler will say cars are the problem. Somebody who drives a car will say two-wheeler are a problem, right? Somebody will say in India, big bakwas, too many problems. Let's just copy what America has done or what Europe has done. Somebody might say that. So all these, right, will come through our personal experience, our personal, the way I'm looking at the problem, and I can give a very instinctive answer. Let's just do this. That's it, right? But such things actually stop you from doing critical thinking. Now, this example will be happening in your day-to-day lives every day. Not this specific one, but you will be faced with challenges every day. Like there is a problem which comes to you, and you say, let's just do this without applying any technique. You say, let's just do this. It happens to us all the time. These are called instinctive answers. But what stops us from stepping back and saying, wait a second, why not ask more questions and think properly and give a critically supported answer? But what stops us from doing that? So let us understand, right? With each of the. So let's say the first one. We need more flyovers and underpasses. That will definitely solve the problem. So the mistake I made is the assumption. I made an assumption that adding more layers of roads will solve the problem. But what we don't realize is that more and more roads I add, right? More and more I add this, more and more traffic is going to come into the city. Could be, right? And might potentially worsen it, because you would have seen in many cities, they build a flyover, right? And the flyover becomes itself a choke point. So you have to climb up like this and then you're stuck like this on the flyover, right? So the mistake we have made here is assumption, right? The assumption we have made is just more roads will solve the problem. But I have not thought through many factors which will tell me what problems can more roads cause, right? So the first mistake you make, which will stop you from doing critical thinking, is we'll make assumptions based on our own personal experience. My experience is that more roads will, solve the problem, because in my neighborhood it has happened. But wait a second. Is it true universally? What works in Pune will not work in Coimbatore, may not work in Madurai, may not work in Erode, may not work in some other place, right? So assumption is the first problem or challenge to doing critical thinking. Okay. So that's A for assumption. Okay. And why are these data points important, guys? Because when we know them, then tomorrow when I ask you the question and you start giving an answer, you'll step back and say, wait a second, wait a second. Behind my answer, have I made any assumption? And you'll stop yourself. Is there any unsupported assumption I'm making while giving that answer? That's why these techniques are going to help you do that. Wait, step back, wait a second. Test your answer saying, am I making an assumption which is unsupported? Yeah. Okay, foreign countries have solved the problem. We should copy their solutions. The second mistake you can make is what is called as a bias. Everybody knows the word bias, by the way, guys. Give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down if you don't know the word bias. Give me a thumbs down. In case you don't, I can explain. It's a very simple word, but I don't want to assume that all of you guys, are okay. So Alam, bias means that I already, in my mind, right, I'm leaning towards something. So for example, I am biased towards something means I like something for whatever reason. I don't want to justify, right? So for example, if you like action movies, you'll say I'm biased more towards action movies than romantic movies. You're biased. So everything you look for from that perspective, that's called a bias, right? Now, in this case, for example, what bias are you noticing? The answer reflects a bias towards foreign solutions. So you know many a times, right? You would have friends who have traveled and they'll come back and say, oh, everything in Singapore or whatever was fantastic. We should just do something like that, right? So now I create a bias that everything there is perfect, right? But what does that stop you? Why does that stop you from doing critical thinking? Because that bias doesn't take in consideration many factors, right? So what works in US, what works in Singapore may not work in India, because India has unique socio-economic factors, cultural factors, infrastructural. For example, in India, there are religious buildings on roads, and it's very difficult to build a road there by taking them down. That's not an issue in many countries. Or in India, there are cultural aspects, right, where something is so old, because India is an old country. We have been around for thousands of years. So you cannot touch this because that structure has been marked as a heritage structure. So now you have to build roads around it. I can't break it down. These challenges are not there in newer countries like Singapore, right? So you can't just say copy Singapore solution, right? Copy Hong Kong solution, copy New York solution, right? You cannot, right? Because in most of those countries, the countries are so new that they could create grid, like they could create roads like this, crisscross. But in India, cities are like thousands of years old, so roads are already created many, many years back. I can't just get rid of the roads and create horizontal and vertical roads. Would be a problem, right? So that is called bias, right? And bias, there are many types of biases, guys. So this is called a confirmation bias, which means I know whatever Singapore does is perfect. Let's just copy it, right? There can be something called a groupthink bias, which is because 20 people are saying the same thing, I think that is correct. That's also a bias. That happens today in the social media world, right? Where you read about it and if many people are saying the same thing, you're biased towards that. And this sounds very simple, but it is actually a very important mistake to understand. Because when I'm answering something, so for example, if I ask you, should India send a manned space flight to the moon? If I have bias, I'll say no, don't do that. Why waste money here, right? Well, we have so many other problems. Somebody who is very excited about technology, about astronomy, about space travel, they'll say no, we have to do it. But both are equally incorrect, because you have to step back and say, why are we doing it? Is there a reason? Can I justify the reason? So on, and we'll learn those techniques, of course. But bias actually stops you from giving your opinion in the right way without any critical thinking. So again, same technique, guys. A stood for assumptions, B stand for bias. Step back and say, am I answering because my friend said? Am I answering because my experience, recent experience tells me something, or am I actually taking data, looking at things critically and answering? So the second mistake you make while trying to do critical thinking is a concept of bias. Okay? And you have to always be wary of that. Okay? Now the third solution he gave, more cars are being sold, that's why traffic is increasing. We need to manage car sales. Because I might be a two-wheeler driver and or whatever reason I say, let's manage car sales, right? So the mistake, this is a very important one, right? Confusing correlation with causation. Now let's just break those terms down, okay? Does if how many of you guys have heard the word term correlation and causation? Very simple. I'll explain what those are. Give me a thumbs down if you have not heard this term. Then I'll explain the terms first. Give me a thumbs down. Okay, good, Ganesh. Okay, perfect. Correlation means, guys, that basically something is related to something, right? Which means, let's say, in one example, let's say I tell you that on Amazon, everybody knows Amazon, right? So if I say that Amazon sales are going down, in India, Amazon sales are going down, and the number of people actually downloading the Amazon app on the phone is also going down. So these two things right now are correlated to each other, which means this is also going down, this is also going down. Somehow they're related. Okay? Because both show similar trend. Causation means that one causes the other, which means that correlation doesn't mean causation, right? Which means just because new app downloads are going down doesn't mean that is the reason for my sales going down. If so, I have to prove it with data. If the data says that because number of app downloads are going down, this is also going down, then I can say this is causing that. But and if remember the danger with this, right? If two things are moving in the same direction, and you say just because they're correlated, I say this causes this, I can go in a different direction. Then I'll start focusing on saying why are app downloads going down, right? So same thing can happen in cities or in your neighborhoods, right? So let's say crime is going up, right? In your neighborhood, crime is going up, and also the number of people moving into your neighborhood are going up, right? The number of new people moving in. So you'll say, oh, new people coming in my neighborhood are causing the crime. If you do causation, but they are just correlated. Number of crimes are going up, number of people in my neighborhood are going up because new people coming in my neighborhood are going up. So let's say in a neighborhood there are 20 buildings, new people are coming in, but the crime is going up. Now they're correlated. It is not cause. If you prove that the new people moving in are doing the crime, then only you can say it's causation. But the reason for crime can be totally different. But if you assume that just because they're correlated, they are causing the problem, what will you do? You'll say, hey, let's just stop new people from coming in. They are the problem. So correlation and causation is a huge problem. And in industry, and that's why looking at data in the right way becomes important. So in our example, the mistake we can make is the number of car sales are going up, which is causing congestion. No, number of car sales are going up and congestion is going up. They're correlated. But if I have to prove they're causing each other, I have to prove that number of cars as they're going up, cars are the main source of congestions. It could be walking people, it could be two-wheelers, it could be the roads which have become very bad in quality, it could be anything, right? So the third mistake you can make, which can stop you from doing critical thinking, is confusing correlation with causation. And this is a very important thing in industry. When we do products, when we build products, or when we do feature discussion, product discussion, we take care. And the way we prove that is using data. Unless we prove that, it is not a causation. It's just a correlation. Is this clear, guys? This is an important one. Give me a thumbs up if it is clear. I need to see many thumbs up or many thumbs downs, okay? When I ask the question, then only I know. Excellent. All right. So this is the C part. So A, B, C, right? Assumptions. We did assumptions. Then we did bias, and then we did correlation with causation. Now let's take the fourth one. Traffic data shows that accidents are increasing, causing a lot of congestions, right? We need stricter punishment. Somebody has given the solution. Here, there could be a data problem, right? Incorrect interpretation of data. That answer focus on accidents as the primary cause. So what we are saying is, now the accidents are causing the congestion, but we have to see whether the accidents are happening in places where there is congestion already, or the accidents are causing the congestion, right? Or are we saying that wherever accidents happen, the data shows that wherever the accident happens, the congestion time is going up, which means the data is now proving to me, right? And how can you incorrectly interpret the data? It's like correlation and causation, right? I can look at data in different ways, right? But today, in the digital world, we collect a lot of data. And one of the danger with data is misinterpretation, right? If you misinterpret, if you look at the same data in a different way, you can reach different conclusions, right? So all companies today pay a lot of attention. So when you're going to graduate, when you're going to join jobs, one of the things you'll be definitely given in interviews and is problem solving around data. That can you understand this data? Can you see some pattern? Can you prove something using this data? Because the same data can lead you in a wrong direction. The same data. So let's like the example of let's say global warming. It's a very big topic today, right? That is all the pollution we are doing causing a lot of global warming, causing rise in the sea levels, melting of glaciers. And there is an argument on how do you look at the data. Some people go back millions of years and say, hey, look at this data. This has happened on Earth before, like 5 million years back. So it is happening today, no big deal. Other people are saying, no, wait a second, let's look at more data to say, has it happened this fast, right? It had happened 5 million years back, but it took like millions of years for that to happen. Here, it is happening in hundreds of years. How is that possible? So you have to look at data and make sure it is not misinterpreted, misused. So the other thing which will stop you from doing good critical thinking is not understanding the data you are given, or not looking at the data in the right way, misinterpreting it, or looking at too much data and you are all getting confused with your conclusions, right? And you will see that in your day-to-day life also, correct? So in the stock market, so if anybody is doing stock trading, right, so much data is available. So you can all of a sudden look at certain data and say, hey, I see that this industry is doing well. Though I look at this data and say, hey, wait a second, this data says that the company in this industry now is not doing well. So let me buy that stock. Let me just buy that stock. But the same data can be looked at by somebody else and saying, wait a second, why was it not doing well? Was it because of product problems? Was it because they're in the wrong market? So they look at more data to justify saying, if this type of industry is going up, will this industry also go up? So you have to look at data in the right way, right? So Sri, what you're saying is correlation is confused that they're directly proportional. Yes, correct, Sri. So correlation is confused because you think because both are moving in the same direction, one causes the other, but not true. You have to prove that one is causing the other, which is called causation. Causation is what we are looking for. Correlation happens all the time. Multiple things that move in the same direction. But causation is very important. Can one cause the other? Right? It's like, since you brought that up, it's like your health, right? So for example, let's say that you're putting on weight, right? So you'll say, oh, because I eat sweets, I'm putting on weight, right? I'm eating more sweets, my weight is going up. So both are correlated. Is one causing the other? Maybe not. Maybe you're not exercising. Maybe there's other piece of data you should look at to see what is actually causing my weight gain, right? That is what is going to help you in critically thinking about the problem, rather than concluding saying, I start eating sweets too much, my weight is going up, so that's the reason. Okay. So is this understood? Data part? Yeah, understood? Yeah. Okay, next one. This again happens to us all the time, isn't it? Seeing all those cars, now you must have experienced this, right? You're standing at a traffic signal, somebody is honking behind you, and say, frustrating. Let's just do something radical. Let's just stop cars from coming on the roads. That is called emotional thinking, and we do this all the time. It happens in our day-to-day life. In politics, it happens. In product decisions, it happens. In our own personal decisions, it happens, right? That you're prone to emotional thinking, right? You read about some crime happening in some city, let's say Delhi, and you say, oh, I don't want to go to Delhi. Delhi, if I go, I'll be robbed, right? Or in Pune, you come and say, hey, Pune has too much pollution. I just want to go. I hate pollution. Pune is very polluted. So you're very emotional about such topics. So you will say, it's bad. But you can reach a lot of wrong decisions because of emotional thinking, right? So you have to step back again. And is one of the other, and you won't believe how many times emotional thinking happens in the industry, right? Because there is somebody and then some customer has called, and this happens especially with customers, where customer is calling and shouting at you saying, your product is doing this bad, give me this. And the manager comes and says, let's just develop this. He stops thinking critically. That one customer is complaining about one thing. He might have had a bad day. Just because he's complaining so loudly, should I first look at saying what he's asking? Is it reasonable? Is it something we should be doing? Is it something we should spend money on? Am I doing any critical thinking? Or because that customer is shouting at me and I got frustrated, I'm going to say, guys, drop everything. Let's just do this. It happens all the time. And good engineers, good professionals, good managers step back and say, wait, yeah, I have to calm down my customer. He's angry, but doesn't mean the solution is just to do what he says. Right? So emotional thinking can cause a lot of bad decisions. Right? Simple to understand, but you succumb to it every day. I see this happening all the time in the industry. Right? So stop yourself from doing that. So how is this? So I'll explain to you how you're going to use this technique. Okay. Last one, right? Failure by jumping to conclusions. This happens all the time. I always see two-wheelers on the road. They are the main cause. I jump to a conclusion. Two-wheelers are the problem, right? So why? Because I'm thinking two-wheelers occupy less space, and then it could be that two-wheelers are not the problem. I jump to a conclusion because I'm driving a car, right? So you jump to a conclusion very fast. So it happens in elections, right? You say, oh, if this party, right? I think if they announce this, they'll win votes. No, yeah, they step back and say, wait a second, how many people is it impacting? Is it actually going to benefit? Is it actually going to carry us positive message? Lot of things, right? But I'll jump to a conclusion because somehow I feel that I'm so confident this will happen, but there's no justification behind the confidence. So you'll always fail if you jump to conclusions directly because you have not done any analysis, any critical thinking, right? So if you notice, we have done a good acronym A, B, C, D, E, F. Can somebody tell me what A is? What mistake is A? Then type it. What mistake is A out of the A, B, C, D, E, F? Very good, Nirupama. Assumption. Perfect. What is B? Bias. Beautiful. Very nice, Alam. Anushri. What is C? What is C? Correlation and causation. Perfect, Alam. Very nicely done. Correlation and causation, guys, both. Okay. Correlation should not be confused with causation. Correct. Right, Shri? So correlation and causation, but that is the main confusion. Perfect. That is the third mistake you can make. What is D? Interpretation. Misinterpretation. So misinterpretation of data, not interpretation. Misinterpretation of data. Right? Too much data, too less data, but misinterpretation of data. So D is data. Correct. Perfect, Shri. Very nice. Correct. What is E? What is E? Emotional thinking. Perfect, Ganesh. Perfect. Very nice. Shri, perfect. Emotional thinking. The fifth mistake you can make is thinking emotionally and giving a answer. Right? And what is F? What is F? Failure by jumping to conclusions. Perfect, Shri. Well done. Well done. Right? So the sixth mistake you can make is directly jump to conclusions without thinking. So the start of any solution is first understanding what mistakes I can make because of which I will not reach to a solution. Right? In fact, there is an interesting mental model on that. I'll explain that to you when we come there. Right? But A, B, C, D, F. Now we know that what will stop me from critical thinking is one of these or many of these. Yeah. So remember A, B, C, D, E, F. But next time, let's say you go for you're doing a project. Your professor asked you to do something. As a friend, you're trying to solve something. Let's say you're trying to build something. You're joining a company. You're doing an interview. Whatever, right? Step back and quickly go through it. As you get to this habit, you don't have to go through A, B, C, D, F. You'll know. Wait a second. What I'm saying, right? I can't justify because I'm causing one of the 6 mistakes is happening, right? So this is how you should use this technique. But now I know what will stop me from doing critical thinking, right? But I still need to learn how to do critical thinking, right? So let's try that. So one possible approach. So we are going to guys, we are going to get to some very beautiful methods, but it's a journey from going from understanding the mistakes to a approach to the models. Models are what we'll use fast, right? But if you directly go to the models, you never understand how you got to them. So we are trying to get to those models by understanding what mistakes can happen, To avoid those mistakes, what can I do? And then how can I summarize that and create models I can use? Okay, that is what AI does today, right? By the way, when you say AI models, what are those? It is trying to abstract out all the things we are trying to do and say, okay, if we use this model, it will solve this problem, this kind of problem. So the world runs on models. Okay, and we're going to learn those for critical thinking. So, for example, one approach I could take is think in the terms of pros, cons, and data and inputs. Always, right? So if I can train my brain to think in pros and cons and data, which means that any answer I give, say, wait a second. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And to justify the advantage and disadvantage, what data do I need? If I do all three, then I can actually give the answer in a very critical manner, a very critically thought manner. So, for example, enhanced public transportation is one of our solutions, right? What are some of the pros? Pros means advantages of doing it. Reduces reliance on private vehicles, leading to fewer cars, of course, because I'm using more trains or buses. Improves accessibility and affordability because they are not expensive. So now many people can use it. Encourage sustainable, eco-friendly, because number of cars are going down, right? I can now basically encourage sustainability, right? But does that mean everything is perfect about this solution for our problem? Maybe not. So what are the cons, which is disadvantages? Requires significant investment. Like you would have seen in some of our cities, they're trying to build metros. It's taking years. It's very expensive. So maybe there is a country or a municipality where they don't have the money. So just telling them to increase public infrastructure, public transportation may not work. They may not have the money. They may face challenges in terms of implementation and maintenance, because once you build it, you have to maintain it. Do I have the departments, the infrastructure, the people? Require a shift in public perception. Like I'm telling you, I come from Pune, right? Pune never had good public transportation. Never had good bus system, no metros. And when I was growing up, you think, no, this is bullshit. I don't want public transport. It is very bad. But 3 hours away was in Mumbai, and everybody in Mumbai swears by public transportation because it's fantastic there, right? So if the politician in Pune is going to say, let's build a metro, yes, convince me to vote for him, because I'll say, no, you're corrupt, you want to eat money, you want to doing this for your own reasons. We don't want this because it doesn't work. So I have to change, he has to change my perception that it will work. So there are these challenges. So those are called cons, right? And what data do I need to justify this? Ridership data on existing. So I will say, whatever public transport I have today, is anybody using it? Is anybody using it at all, or it's just going empty today? If I see that there's an increasing trend in people using public transport, whatever is available today, I can say that let's invest more now. The people are more and more using it. Or the other data I look for is travel patterns, right? Which means if I develop public transport, I can decide what type of public transport. If I build a metro, how much time I have to run it, which also depends on, then that will depend the budget I want to create. What areas, what are the patterns, which time of the day, which area gets the most traffic when. Cost benefit analysis. I'll say, okay, it's so easy to say public transportation. Should I invest in buses? Should I invest in trains or metros? What should I invest in? How do I decide? Right? So cost benefit analysis I have to do. If I invest in metro, it will take a long time, more money, but it's easier to maintain. Buses can still cause a problem because the roads are not great. So I have to look at all of this. Public opinion surveys. I talked about that already. So one approach, a start of a critical thinking approach, is think of everything from pros, cons data. So we started with saying, first let's understand what will stop me from doing it. A, B, C, D, E, F. Then I came here and said, okay, fine. Now I understand the mistake I'll make. So I'll not just answer. But one of the answers I want to give now is, let's just improve public transportation. So rather than just saying it, I will make sure in my mind I've done pros, cons data. So if somebody asks me, why are you saying that? I can explain this way. It's a start to critical thinking. Is this clear? Give me a thumbs up if this concept is clear to everybody. So I need to see a lot of thumbs up or a lot of thumbs downs. And don't be afraid to give a thumbs down if you're not understood something. No problem. I'll explain again. Right? So, as I said, there's a start to that technique, right? So similarly, I'll give 2-3 examples. We'll not go through all, but you'll get a sense, right? So one of the things I'm saying is promote non-motorized transport, right? So or we can take any so let's say take non-motorized transport. So there are cities in the world where they're trying to say people should use more cycles, or they should use those portable electric scooters, small ones. Let's just have big areas of the city not allowing any two-wheeler or four-wheeler. Could be. So what are the pros? If I say that, what are the pros? Improves air quality for sure, right? Because obviously there will be less pollution because I'm not emitting smoke, right? Reduces carbon emissions to a healthier lifestyle. I'm going to get a fitter because I'm going to walk more, I'm going to cycle more, and cost effective, obviously, because now there are dedicated lanes, a lot of roads become empty. So I can have dedicated lanes for cycles. But is it practical? What are the cons? May not be suited for all journeys. If I have to go 10 kilometers and you ask me to go by cycle to my work, I'll be sweaty by the time I get to the office. Will that work? Probably not. Some cities it has. So for example, in Amsterdam, in Holland, right, most people cycle to work, right? Because they somehow concluded that was more beneficial. People would benefit, or maybe the distance is smaller there, maybe, or requires a safe and secure environment, right? So that's another problem now, right? At late at night, I finish work, I'm coming walking or cycle. I have to make sure safety is taken care of, right? May face challenge in terms of enforcement because people will say no to this, right? They're going to say, wait a second, why are you asking me not to drive my car? I won't drive my car. What happens if I have to go with the family? Many problems, right? I won't have like 4 cycles in the family with 4 of us cycling. Maybe some countries it's possible, maybe it's not possible in my city. Could be. But what data will I use to justify this or not justify this? Traffic volume and speed. So if I look at the data and say most people are commuting more than X kilometers to work, I'll say it's an impractical solution. But if the data says that most people are going within 1 kilometer of their job or their stay, great, it may work, right? Accident data and safety audits. So is my current infrastructure good enough, right? For cycles, for walking? What kind of data? What is the data telling me? Public opinion surveys, right? Are people even prone to doing such thing in India? Maybe not, right? So it may be a very impractical solution for India, right? So again, I thought from a concept of pros, cons, and data. And such professionals are very impressive. So you go for an interview and somebody they ask you, what do you think about this? And they will ask you such open-ended questions. And you just answer this. And I look at you and say, okay, tell me why. And then you're stuck. Rather than that, step back and say, wait a second. If you ask me why, how to think with this technique, first and foremost, A, B, C, D, F. And next is pros, cons data. Pros, cons. Then I can justify saying there are pros, there are cons, and this is the data I would require. After which I can tell you that it's practical. But it is one of the solutions. Okay. Implement traffic management strategies, improve urban planning, many things, right? Improve car share, encourage carpooling, right? So I mean, I can use this technique, guys, right? And I won't go through all examples, but I think you get a good sense, right? That going from mistakes to pros, cons data. But now the challenge you may have is for all 6, 7, 8 solutions, I have pros, cons data, pros, cons data. I have to finally make a decision. How will I make a decision between all of them? Because as a municipality, as a city, as a town, as a country, I can't do all of them. Everything has pros and cons, everything has data, but how do I decide between them now? And this, as you can imagine, must be happening day to day in the industry. I have a smartphone. The smartphone manufacturer, when they do their next release, there are 50 things they can do. For all those 50 things, right? The engineers, the professional, good critical thinkers will come and justify with this technique. But then the manager is saying, wait a second, we have only limited money, man. I have to, between those 50, I have to decide what to do and what not to do. So critical thinking should also allow you to make that decision. So the third part of learning critical thinking, as we go from avoiding mistakes to doing a pros cons data kind of analysis to using a technique now to between all my choices, when I have all the pros, cons, and data required, how do I decide between them? That is the next step. Is this logical flow clear to everybody? Give me a thumbs up if it is clear the way we are headed. And then at the end, we'll go to, after that, we'll go to mental model. That I can't keep doing this all the time. So there are smart people out in the world who have come up with a concept called mental models, where they've taken all of this and come with a technique which will help you do this very fast. Those are called mental models. Okay, that is the fourth part. So this sequence is clear, right? So now, how do I do that? So how will you further use critical thinking to get to the best alternative out of all of them? So the technique, the 5 ways to look at any situation, right? So you look at any situation by comparing, contrasting, analyzing, categorizing, evaluating. Let's go through each word now. Okay. Comparing is very clear. If you are out there, so let's take an example. Let's say you're trying to buy a two-wheeler, right? And you're trying to convince your parents to buy your two-wheeler, right? So now they will ask you that, oh, what have you looked at? Why are you saying I want this? How will you do that? You'll first compare many, right? You'll compare parameters. Whose average is the best? Whose cost is the least, right? Which is more reliable and durable? Which has the best reviews from customers? Would you agree that you'll compare? Huh? Would you agree you'll compare different vehicles? Yeah. If you want to buy a two-wheeler, starting point is comparing, right? Correct. Next thing you'll do is contrast them. Contrast. Does everybody know the word contrast? What is contrast? Give me a thumbs up if you know the meaning of the word contrast. Right? So contrast means that I compare and then I say what the other doesn't have. That is contrasting. Right? Both movies are good. Right? I'm comparing those movies and they have this has this hero, this has that hero, this has this heroine, that heroine, this, and then say I'm contrasting them. Oh, this one, right, is more entertaining because it has this. Oh, this one is too long and this is less longer. I'll spend less time. So you start contrasting them now, right? Because contrasting helps you get to the point where you say, oh, okay, which one starts looking better based on data. Once you have the compare and contrast, you analyze, saying that based on what I want to do. Let's take the two-wheeler example. So I'm comparing, let's say, Splendor. I'm comparing Splendor to, let's say, Pulsar, or I'm comparing Splendor to Pulsar and something else from Honda or Suzuki or whatever, right? Correct. So when I compared, I saw, okay, they're average. Then I contrasted them. I said, let me start analyzing what is important for me, right? And let me analyze the data to actually see whether the average, how long does that average stay? So they all claim they give 80 kilometers a liter, but does it stay how long? So let me start analyzing the data further, right? After analyze, I'll say I categorize. Now I'll bunch them in categories, right? This, out of the 10 vehicles I compared, these 3 have the best average. These 3 have the best looks. They look beautiful. These 5, right, have the best durability, least maintenance. These 4 are the cheapest. And now when you look at compare, then you evaluate and say the one common one between all of them, which is the least, one of the least expensive ones with the best average, with the least maintenance, right, is this. So let me buy that. Right, which is why probably why Hero Splendor is the most selling vehicle, because it fits. When people do this, while it emerges one of the most popular vehicles, right? So would you agree that in a sense we do this but not systematically, right? Compare, contrast, analyze, categorize. We just don't do it systematically. Is this clear to everybody? Give me a thumbs up, then we'll go through example. Give me a thumbs up if the technique is clear. Compare, contrast, analyze, categorize, evaluate. Right? So where are we right now in critical thinking in this session? We first said critical thinking is critical. The first place is important. It's critical to know it. Then I said, what will stop me from doing it? Which is what we looked at, the mistakes I can make while doing it, right? Then I said, okay, I understand the mistake now. Let me now go to a technique which is called pros, cons, and data analysis, data collection, right? So I can present it. But then I have many choices. So how do I decide best choice among those? I'll use this technique. 5 ways. Okay. Now, if I take that, let's take one example. Cycles and whatnot. Implement traffic management strategies. So basically, do different kind of strategies for better traffic. We didn't go through this in details, but you get a sense, right? I have 5-6 solutions where I can do pros, cons. I'll leave it on the so that you have a, because I refer to this in the next part. So I'll leave it on the, so you can just quickly read it for a minute. Give me a thumbs up quickly, somebody, when you read it. So I'll just quickly, I'm going to refer to it, hence I'm just allowing you to read it. It's the same technique, pros, cons data, pros, cons data. You read it? Read it? Give me a thumbs up once you're finished. When I see many thumbs up, I'll move to the next slide. Perfect. Then the next possible solution was improve urban planning. So improve the cities by doing better planning. So read this and just give me a thumbs up when you read it. Thumbs up once you're done. Simple. I mean, we're not actually solving the problem. I'm just going to refer to it. That's why I'm allowing you to read it. We went through one example in details, right? So this is the same thing. Pros, cons data, pros, cons data. No different. Are done? Perfect. I think the last, encourage carpooling and ride sharing was another solution I could have. Give me a thumbs up once you read it. Done? Give me a thumbs up if you're done reading this. Perfect. Right. So these are the 5 somehow I came up with, right? Encourage carpooling, urban planning, traffic management, motorized transport, and public transportation. Now, if I had to use this technique, right? So now let's take the first one. So now enhance public transportation. So what I'll do is I'll compare it. Compared to non-motorized transport, one of the solutions I had was non-motorized transport. Compared to non-motorized transport, public transport offers greater mobility and accessibility. If I compare it, right, then compared to non-motorized cycles and walking and whatnot, right, it offers me greater mobility and access to longer distances. Definitely, if I compare those two. Compared to traffic management strategies, it directly addresses the root cause of congestion, which is high car dependency, right? One of the data tells me is a high car dependency. So public transportation enhancement directly addresses that, which means people will drive their cars less when I have better public transportation, right? If I compare. Compared to urban planning, it is a more immediate solution. Urban planning takes years, decades to change the cities, the roads, the layouts. It takes decades, right? And tens of years. Whereas enhancing public transportation will not take that long if I compare those two. And compared to carpooling and ride sharing, it is a much more structured, potentially more affordable, right? Because in carpooling, ride sharing, it may be still expensive. Public transportation is subsidized and cheap. That is, so what I'm doing in this case is comparing the solution I've given to the other 4 potential solutions, right? So this is the called comparison. Now, if I contrast it, right? Unlike, when you say contrast, you use the word unlike, right? When you use the word compare, compared to, and then unlike, right? Unlike non-motorized transport, public transportation heavily relies on infrastructure development, right? So it is giving me the other side of the world, which is while if I compare it, it offers greater mobility and access to people for long distance. If I contrast it, it relies heavily on infrastructure, because as you can see, metros take a lot of time, money, infrastructure to develop, and may not be suitable for all trips. If I have to go for 2 kilometers, I'll not go and take a metro, right? So it may not work for people for short commutes. Unlike traffic management, it requires significant upfront investment. Correct? Traffic management strategies can be implemented very fast. Put police, traffic signals much cheaper. Whereas a metro, a new bus system, BRTS requires tons of money, right? Unlike urban planning, its impact may be limited by existing urban development patterns because the city is already laid out. So unlike urban planning, its impact is maybe limited because if I want to enhance public transportation, there are places I may not be able to build those pillars for metro also, right? So in urban planning, I can change the layout and make sure space becomes available. But if I don't, then in public transport, just saying build a metro doesn't help. I need space, I need land, right? There are already congested roads. Where do I build those big pillars? Could be a problem. And unlike carpooling, it offers less flexibility in terms of routes and schedules, because carpooling, ride sharing, you can go anywhere. Whereas here it is going to go from A to B to C to D to whatnot. How many routes I should put? So contrast gives you the other side of the world. Okay. So we first compared, then we contrasted. Is this clear, guys? Give me a thumbs up if compare and contrast was clear to everybody. As I said, I need many thumbs up or many thumbs downs. Right? So in this technique, we are using compare and contrast. Right? Now, the third step will be to analyze. I have the data, I have the pros and cons, I have compared, I have contrasted. So now what I'll start doing is analyzing the data. What kind of data? Factors like frequency, reliability, safety, affordability, and route coverage. All these data I'll start analyzing now, saying if I want to enhance public transportation, what kind of frequency I would require on the routes? What is the reliability I would require for the timings as well as on the equipment? Safety, what kind of safety data I have to look at to know that I can build something which is very safe? Cost, budgets, route coverage, how many can I build, right? And I have to analyze that to using ridership data, which means how many people today actually go to office by different means, what are the times they travel, and what is the user feedback of today's public transportation, so I can do improvement, right? So now since I have the compare and contrast, I'll say let me look at this data to justify or not justify why this could get picked. So this data is what I'll start analyzing now in details. Okay, so that is the third step. So compare, contrast, analyze. Once I do that, now I'll categorize them. This falls under demand management. What I mean by that is just like in our two-wheeler example, I did all of this and then I put them in buckets, or they're called categories. What are the cheapest ones? What are the two-wheelers with the best average? What are two-wheelers which are the best durability and least maintenance? What are the two-wheelers which are looking the best, cool looking, awesome looking? This is called categorization. Based on this data and all the compare and contrast, they'll fall into these categories now, right? And then the last part is evaluate. Success is measured. So what will prove that if I do all of this, this will grant me success? So it will basically have to justify saying that if we do this, the data tells me by comparing, contrasting, analyzing the solutions, and then categorizing them, we believe enhancing public transportation could be a solution, because when I do this for all the solutions, the success criteria of increased ridership, with the main goal is reduce congestion. That's it, right? So finally, I have to prove after evaluation that what are all the things will happen while I decrease the congestion. So it has added benefits like this. So the evaluation, I will present this saying, while we'll reduce congestion, it has all these other benefits. Increase ridership, reduce travel time, so on and so on, so forth. So this is the best solution. So now, if you notice, I avoided the mistakes. I've done pros, cons, and data, and then I use this technique among all the solutions to compare, contrast, analyze, evaluate, so on and so forth, to finally come up with a recommendation to the municipal commissioner or the chief minister or some department, saying that let's go with this. Right? It's a long, laborious process, but it is something which you need to do, so you can step back and say tomorrow that if a mistake happens, hey, wait a second, why did I make this decision? In my critical thinking, what factor did I consider? Because one of the mistakes which a lot of professionals make is that they'll suggest something, and when a mistake happens, they'll say, oh yeah, that mistake happened because. And then when you're asked, but why didn't you think of it that time? You don't have a way to go back and say what made you make that decision. So critical thinking allows you to go back. And how did I reach that conclusion? Yeah? Clear? Is this technique clear, guys? So going from mistakes to pros, cons data to this technique, right? Technique. Compare, contrast, analyze, categorize, evaluate. Is this clear to everybody? I want to see a lot of thumbs up or a lot of thumbs downs. Is this technique clear? Good. So now, but as I said, guys, right, this will help you definitely do critical thinking. It's a methodical way to do critical thinking. But then, as I said, people in the industry have been doing this for a very long time. So very smart people have come together and said, wait a second, I will do all of this, but maybe different mental models. There can be models created which is short circuit or give me a shortcut to getting to my conclusion faster, depending on the situation, by using something which is like a template. Have you guys heard the word how many people have heard the word template? Give me a thumbs up if you have heard the word template. Right? So I want some templates to work with, which will help me do this faster. Right? So that brings us to the concept of mental models. Right? There's a fantastic book by a person called Shane Parrish. Anybody who loves to read, I would recommend you look at this book. Right? The Great Mental Models, a book by Shane Parrish. So in my industry, in my experience, I use mental models a lot. Right? When we used to make decisions about products, when we used to make decisions about features, we use mental models quite a lot. Right? And critical thinking was one of the most important things we paid attention to. So since all of you guys are on this thing, right, guys? The first 4 topics we are taking this semester, right? Articulation and communication, which was last week, critical thinking, problem breakdown, and inquisitiveness and curiosity are very critical, super important topics. These are the skills you need to have to succeed in the industry, or you want to get picked in the industry. Because all of you guys are going to have similar technical knowledge, right? What will make you stand out are things like these. Okay? You have to practice it. So you have enough time to practice before you start looking for a job. Okay? So mental models are very simple, right? It just helps us understand the way the world works, right? So these are time-tested ideas or models which will help me get to an answer faster, right? And these are all many times absolute, right? So a simple mental model is like gravity, like water goes up, comes down, right? I can apply that mental model to many physics problems, right? That model of gravity I can apply to many physics problems. To even solve my problem of interspace, interplanet travel, or all the things going on today, they are using the basic mental model of gravity to figure out what kind of rockets I have to build, what should be the thrust, what should be the energy, right? They're very simple, Newton's laws, very simple models, but I can repeatedly use them. Every time I don't have to do a discovery, right? But let's just understand it much more on our life. What is it that we will use? So just like we use the case study of traffic congestion, let's just use a case study to understand mental models, right? Now, this is an industry case study, guys. Okay, so you have to pay a lot of attention because this is the case study I'm going to refer continuously through the next part of this session while we look at some mental models. Okay, so please pay attention. Okay. The case study is, the name of the case study is The Road Ahead, Navigating the Indian Motorcycle Market. So then let's assume there's a company, and I named the company Veloso Motors, some name, right? Just like Hero, TVS, Honda, Suzuki, I've given a name Veloso, some name, right? It is a well-established Indian motorcycle manufacturer with a so they sell mostly in towns and villages, small 100cc, 125cc, 150cc, smaller motorcycles. And they focus on ruggedness, just like a Splendor. Rugged, doesn't break down, fuel efficiency, affordability, all the things the Splendor gives you today, right? Catering to needs of farmers, business owners, daily commuters in small towns and villages. But now, just like by the way, this is a real case study, okay? TVS and by the way, everybody knows these companies I'm talking about, right? Hero, TVS, Honda, Suzuki. Give me a thumbs up if you know these companies, two-wheeler manufacturers. Everybody knows them, right? I'm assuming. Royal Enfield, which makes the Bullet. Everybody knows these companies, right? So, as you would notice, right, a lot of these companies today are trying to see how they can increase their markets, right? So, one of the things they're doing is the Veloso Motors, right? They want to increase their market share because they are today dominant in towns and villages, but they don't do much in cities, in metros. So one of the market analysis that done is there a growing demand for premium motorcycles. Have you noticed, guys, by the way, nowadays in India, a lot of people are buying more and more brands like Royal Enfield, right? Expensive. Bajaj is making expensive motorcycles also. Have you noticed that, by the way? Give me a thumbs up if you have noticed that you are seeing more and more expensive motorcycles on the road, in the cities especially. Have you noticed that? In Madurai, in Bangalore, in Pune, right? And it's coming now to the small villages and towns also. There's an increased focus on safety, technology. So now you see that motorcycles have GPS also inbuilt. Electric vehicles are GPS inbuilt. A lot of new technologies coming in for safety also. Then there is a rise in electric vehicles. Have anybody, all of you guys have seen Give me a thumbs up if you have driven or seen or sat on an electric vehicle. Give me a thumbs up if you have any electric vehicle. Right? So you're seeing a lot of rise in those. And then there is changing preferences of customers with younger generation promoting prioritizing style. So before, right, when I was growing up, right, I mean, we used to look at efficiency. Who is going to give me the best average? If the average is Hero Honda is 80, I'll buy Hero Honda. But nowadays, you want to see style. So you see people buying KTM on the cool looking bikes, scramblers and whatnot, right? So they want to look at style and performance and these technologies along with all the other things also, right? Now, one of the things Veloso Motors is saying is we have strong manufacturing because we are very good in small motorcycles in village and towns, and we have well established servicing and dealer network all over India, right? But they are more in rural and semi-urban areas. So, for example, if I take Pune, Pune is a big city, but near Pune there are many small towns, right? So Veloso Motors is very dominant there. It may not be dominant in Pune, but it's very dominant in those towns. Then they have very limited experience in developing and marketing. They don't have premium motorcycles. They can't compete with a Royal Enfield with their fancy expensive vehicle. They don't have any, right? And they need to invest in research and development because their motorcycles are smaller, 100cc, 125, 150, 175, but not like 350cc, 500cc, and the big premium motorcycle. They don't have those today, right? And limited brand awareness. I mean, let's say Hero is known for this. If Hero tomorrow tries to bring a vehicle out which is competing with Royal Enfield, right, with their Meteor or some big fancy one, right? People say, why Hero can't make them? Hero makes Splendor. Simple, right? So there's a brand problem also that they need to change, right? So now I'm the CEO of the company of Veloso Motors. I'm thinking I want to expand my market into cities. I want to sell premium motorcycles. I want to build premium motorcycles. I want to sell premium motorcycles. I'm only selling 100, 125cc, 150cc. I want to sell bigger ones, fancier ones, right? So features, what do I build, right? Do I build ABS, traction control? Should I try those on my current motorcycles or should I buy completely? So new product, should I build a brand new product? Or should I take the same motorcycle, enhance it to make it instead of 150cc, a 225cc motorcycle, but keep the styling same, but add more features? Should I do that? Or should I not do that and completely build a new one, like a new product altogether, right? And how do I make my brand name and penetrate a market like Mumbai or Pune or Bangalore or Madurai or Delhi or any of the big cities? How do I do that, right? And what marketing strategy will work? Because I'm known for cost efficient, simple vehicles, cost efficient, very well maintained, no servicing issues kind of. But now, if I want to get into premium, how do I market myself, right? So then the data I have to consider is I want to do some market research and find out what the customers are saying about me, about my vehicles, right? I want to look at what my competition is doing. So what Hero will look at is what TVS is doing, what Bajaj is doing, what Royal Enfield is doing, right? And where is the market? Who has how much market share? They look at sales data. How is my sales doing in my part? And also as some of the new things I'm trying. How is Bajaj doing? How is somebody else doing? They look at sales data, their own and others also. They look at production data, manufacturing. What is it very efficient? What is my profit margin? Right? My manufacturing cost, my production capacity. I have plants in Chennai or near Chennai, right? So if I want to build a brand new motorcycle, which is fancy, where do I source the new material from? Who are the suppliers, right? And customer feedback. I want to first know what they talk about me today. Are they complaining about me? Are they unhappy with my products today? Then I have to first improve that before I get to new products. So what are they saying? So I want all this data, right? Which will help me then answer some of the questions I am asking, right? If I want to enter this new market, I want to build this premium motorcycles for cities. What are the top 2-3 features that will have the greatest impact on customer satisfaction? What will they like, which will make them buy my vehicle? What is the price point? I'm selling motorcycles which are worth 50,000, 75,000, 60,000. Now I want to sell something which is worth 1.5 lakhs and 1.2, 75 lakhs, 2 lakhs. What is that price point? I should, so I don't spoil my brand name, but I also don't compromise on quality. What are the risk and reward? This is a completely new market I'm entering. I have to put in a lot of money. So what is the risk and reward? How much money I have to put with? If I fail, what happens? So on and so forth, right? Veloso Motors have been around for 50 plus years. What can I use from my current brand, my current manufacturing, my current motorcycles, right? To basically get to this new market. And what are the long-term implications? If I get into this market, will I compromise on my current market? Will I stop paying attention to villages and city, towns, which is actually the main market I have today? So eventually, am I moving into metros, more and more expensive vehicles? Is that what is going to happen? So these are the kind of question I, as a owner of the company, will ask. That is the case study. Is this case study clear? Please ask questions, guys. It's very important you understand this. It's a very simple, it's a real case study, by the way. This is the case study which is being faced by Hero, TVS, Bajaj today. This is a real life case. We're just calling it Veloso. But they are all trying to compete with a Royal Enfield, a Triumph, or a BMW. They want to enter that market. And Royal Enfield is the big one in that market. They're all trying to compete with Royal Enfield. So this is actually a real case study. Okay? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it is not understood any part, I'll explain again. So give me a thumbs up if you understood the case study well, properly. And I need a lot of thumbs up or a lot of thumbs downs. I didn't see as many thumbs ups. Okay. Now, are there any questions you have in this case study? By the way, the whole industry works on case studies, by the way. In colleges, right, you work on theory and specific problems. Sir, can you explain the marketing part? Yes, Alam. So today, if I'm selling a Hero Splendor, right, the way I will market the vehicle will be, I'll say, okay, it has the best average. It will give you 80 kilometers to a liter. So my whole marketing strategy, my advertisements are all around certain themes of efficiency. I'll also market saying once you buy a Splendor or once you buy a Bajaj Pulsar, oh, you will basically not need to change any part for 5 years. We are that reliable, so on and so forth. Now, my whole department is marketing my vehicles a certain way. Now, when I go to premium, right, and I'm selling something for 2 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs, my whole marketing strategy has to change. There, people who can spend 2.5 lakhs, 3 lakhs on a vehicle, they're not that worried about efficiency. You're not going to say, oh, I'm selling you this fancy motorcycle, which has an average of 25. Yeah, it's important, but not as much. What you'll focus on is saying, hey, this vehicle which I'm selling you, which is a 350cc or a 500cc, you'll focus on the looks, the comfort. You'll focus on the jazz, the factor which will make me look cool. So my whole marketing, my advertising will show me a cool guy wearing goggles and shades and looking fancy, going, rather than somebody going to work from A to B and saying, oh, look, when I go to the petrol pump, I don't feel any petrol because it gives me 80. You will not do that kind of an ad for a premium vehicle. So my whole marketing strategy has to change, right? And that requires a lot of thinking and money. Is that clear, Alam? Is this clear? Cool. Any other questions? Just like Alam, good question. He's already Alam is demonstrating curiosity, because in the industry that's what happens. Your boss is going to come to you with such case studies and he's going to say, guys, what do you think? And people who ask questions stand out, but they are trying to understand, learn. So ask questions if you have any on your mind. Don't be afraid. Any other questions on the case study? No? Okay, I need to see thumbs up again then to know whether you understood the case study properly. This is the case study. Give me a lot of thumbs up if you understood the case study, then we'll get to the mental models. Beautiful. Okay. So now, just to summarize, guys, where we are. We started with saying critical thinking is critical. Important to know what mistakes will stop me from doing critical thinking. We went through the mistakes A, B, C, D, E, F. Then we went to saying, okay, there's a simple method, pros, cons, and data. But now, even if I have that, I have to compare and contrast, so to know the best choice. But this is quite elaborate, right? So then we came to saying that I need some templates. I need a way to do this faster. So smarter people have come up with these templates or ways to use them in different situations. So this case study we are going to use to talk about mental models. Okay. So there is a mental model called circle of competence. Okay. Just read this. What do you understand by this? I'm no genius. This is actually a mental model, guys. Okay. I'm no genius, but I stay, I'm smart in sport, but I stay around the spot. So the dark black is what I'm very, very good in. So every company, every product, every person is good in, very, very good in something, not so good in other things. So the circle of competence mental model is a critical thinking model which allows you to say what you're very good in. So you focus, you maximize and use what you're best in, and don't waste time on trying to use what you're not very good in. Saves you a lot of time and effort and money, right? Correct. So a very simple example of this mental model, right? So let's say somebody is playing basketball, right? Now, all of you guys, give me, have you guys seen basketball? No basketball? Give me a thumbs up. Cricket, basketball, any sport, right? So now in basketball, there is something called free throws, right? Where I'm standing at the line and I'm doing a free throw, correct? But I may be very, very good in free throws, but I'm very bad in dribbling the ball through a crowd and doing a basket, right? So now I know that my core circle of competence, the black part, is actually free throws. This black part is free throws. The gray part is dribbling and doing the shot from doing a lot of dribbling in traffic, right? So now what will I do when there is a match going on? Rather than trying to always try to get the ball through where the ball will be taken away from me, I will be smart enough and fast enough to position myself in places where I can take easy free shots. And I'll make those shots rather than trying to focus on the areas I'm not very good in, right? In cricket, for example, right, there are cricketers who are very, very good on the outside the off stump, right? And they're not very good when the ball comes on the leg stump. So you'll take your stance. You stand in a certain way that most ball which are pitched to you, you might hopefully get them on the offside. Or you might be somebody who's very, very good at playing spin versus playing fast, right? So you always know your circle. That doesn't mean you're very bad at the gray, by the way, but you know what your strengths are. So you maximize that. And companies use this all the time. And we'll know now in our case study how I'll use this, right? But many a times, right? So for example, you're all students. So if I take all the subjects you have, and if I ask you what is your circle of competence, I'm sure each one of you will be able to say what is black for you. Some people are very, very good in math. So the black might be math, right? Some people are very good in physics. Some people are very good in programming. Some people are very good in testing, depending on the subject. And there is a gray. So now what will I do? If I know this, there are two things I will do. I'll try to make the gray into black by focusing on it. And I'll make sure the black is where I go more and more so that people know how valuable I am. Right? But many times we don't give this a thought. We look at everything the same. And companies do the same sometimes. So for example, if I'm building a smartphone, my core competency is the camera technology. I have great engineers. I'm very good in lenses. Right? But I'm not very good in AI, the software AI part. Right? So now I have to sell my product, making sure people understand why I'm way better at the camera and shooting and video. And I'll not promote AI, but I'll use somebody else's technology. I don't have the competency to do it. But you try to do everything, you're going to put your engineers, everything will come with a bad product. Right? So this is called circle of competence mental model. And we're going to go through our case study and see how we're going to use that, right? Correct? Is the mental model clear to all of you? Give me a thumbs up if the mental model is clear. It's one of the simplest mental models called circle of competence. Is this clear to everybody? So now how will I use this? Right? I will ask these two questions. What are Veloso Motors' core strengths in motorcycle manufacturing? So for example, Veloso Motors, if you want to maximize their black and see what the gray, what can I do? I just need to know what is my black, right? What is my core competency? So is it engine technology? Is it cost? So clearly, if you look at Veloso Motors, right, their core competency or their core black will be cost effectiveness and durability. They may not be that great in engine technology because they may make 100, 120 smaller engines. So if I know that once I'm given an engine, I can tweak it, do it in a way by which it becomes cost efficient, it becomes durable. So my manufacturer, very good in manufacturing, right? I can optimize and bring the cost down. But the core engine technology for a 350cc engine or a 500cc engine may not be my core strength, initially at least. So what will I do? What are the areas where Veloso Motors lacks expertise and may need to partner? So, car companies have done that. For example, Tata Motors doesn't have a good petrol engine. So I don't know whether you guys know this, but Tata is very good in diesel engines. They're not good in petrol at all, right? So they are not trying to get into petrol engines. And when they do, they will actually either buy somebody, partner with somebody, so on and so forth, right? Same thing happening in electric vehicles, right? For example, there are companies who are doing electric vehicles really well, and bigger companies saying, wait a second, that's not my core competency. Let me buy that company only, right? So even in software products, right, same thing happens. So for example, if you go to an e-commerce player, right, and they say my core competency is making sure that I can stock the inventory and I can basically make sure it's a lot of choices and the user interface. Now, is my core competency delivering those or paying those? Do the payment? No, I don't. That's not my core competency. So what they'll do, they'll integrate with a Razorpay or PhonePe or something for the payment part. For the delivery, they'll tie up with delivery partners so that their engineers are focused on what they're great at. Right? So in case of Veloso Motors, if I'm the CEO, I'll say, I want to use this mental model. I'll say, wait a second. I know I'm very good in cost effectiveness, durability, manufacturing. So let me start. And my engine technology for bigger engines, 500cc, 350cc, I'm not very good in. It will take me years to develop it. So let me start looking for a partner in the world, somewhere in Europe, US, somewhere. But bring the technology in and optimize to make it cheaper to manufacture and deliver at the same quality. So if you notice, initially, when the motorcycles happened in India, Honda collaborated with Hero. So it was Hero Honda. Kawasaki, Bajaj collaborated with Kawasaki. It was Kawasaki Bajaj. Slowly, they developed those competencies. So the gray became the black. And now Kawasaki is doing their own. Bajaj is doing their own. Hero is doing their own. Honda. But it took years. But that time they realized that our core competency is in manufacturing and cost optimization and durability. The core engine technology is not my competency. Let me collaborate with Honda. Let me collaborate with the Kawasaki. Similarly, here, they are saying the bigger engines I don't do. So let me collaborate with somebody in the world who's not in India yet, but bring the manufacturing to Indian factories where my core competency, my black, is to manufacture them cheaply in a highly durable way so that the cost doesn't stay high. The cost comes down and I can compete in the market. So this is how the the circle of competence mental model can be used by the owner of this company to make some decisions on what to partner, what to do. Right? Is this mental model clear, guys? Give me a thumbs up if it is clear. Thumbs down if it is not. Right? And this one mental model, right? I have used in my life like 100 times. Every time we have a release or we are building a new product or we are releasing a new product, we use this. What to focus, what not to focus, right? Where to partner, where to actually do it ourselves. Those decisions we make by using the circle of competence mental model. Okay? Then there's another mental model called Pareto principle. Have anybody heard about Pareto principle? Right? Pareto principle is very interesting, by the way. Okay, so let me explain what that is. It's a beautiful principle, actually very simple but very beautiful. Usually, 20% of anything yields 80% of the results. Right? And in a sense, you'll know this as a student also, right? So when you are studying for an exam, you somehow know that if I do these 3 chapters, it will get to the maximum marks. Rather than doing 12 chapters, these 3 I'll focus on more, and rest I'll focus a little less. Because I know that these 3 will have maximum marks impact. Have you kind of done that in the past when you are studying? Give me a thumbs up if you have actually you have done this in the past. Come out with that 20%, or 30%, which will get me the maximum marks. So not spend time equally on everything. Right? You know, when I was growing up, there used to be this company, Navneet, I think, if I'm not wrong. They used to come up with something for a 10th standard exam, 12th standard exam. They used to come with something called 21 likely questions. Right? So they used to say that these 21 questions are most likely in the exam. So they used to do the Pareto principle without realizing it. That if out of all the 200 questions, this 21 question, if you study, you will have the chance of getting the most marks. So it used to be called 21 questions. So in companies, and this Pareto principle is used everywhere. So let me ask you as an example, right? So let's say, how many of you use Gmail? So give me a thumbs up if you use Gmail. Many thumbs up or many thumbs downs if you guys use Gmail, right? So now if I ask you, what features in Gmail do you use? So if you don't use Gmail, you will be using some email product, right? So let's say Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Apple Mail, whatever. But let's say Gmail, right? What features in Gmail do you use most? Can you type them? Can you type them? So let me start. What do I use? Obviously, compose, email, and send. I use this obviously, right? I use attachments. What else? GChat, components. Yes. What else? Come on, guys. All of you use Gmail. So type in. What do you guys use most in Gmail? What do you guys use most in Gmail? This is not a complicated question. Come on. Attachment. Yes, Alam. I also do that. What else? Storing data in Drive. Yes, correct. Perfect, Sushmita. Very nice. I also use that actually a lot. What else? Google Meet. Okay, Alam, I don't use that much, but yeah, Google Meet not through email, by the way. As a separate app, yes, but on the email interface, I don't use that. Right. So if I look at the Gmail product, how many features do you think Gmail has today? What's your guess? How many features does Gmail have? Huh? How many features? Just a guess. 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. How many features does Gmail have? Like compose, send, attach, this, that. How many features do you think they have? 20? Could be. So I did a Google. I asked Google the same question. So they said dozens. So it's definitely 20 or more. So dozens. So maybe 40, 50, 70, 80 features. And how many are we able to come up with, guys? Maybe 4 or 5. So look at the Pareto principle, right? If I am an engineer in Google working on Gmail and I'm doing product planning, what will I say? Which 20% features are used by 80% of my customers? Right? The 20% features will be email compose, send, attachment, maybe Google store, whatnot, right? Storage and send from there, whatever, maybe 5, 10 features. 80% of my customers mostly use it. Very few customers use all the sophisticated features. So now when I'm doing a product release, I'll make sure that these 20% are tested the most. These 20%, I make sure that they're not compromised by anything else. These 20% I'll keep improving continuously because those are loved and most used by my customers. So when I'm doing new investments, I'll make sure that I don't compromise on this 20% as I'm doing the different features. Would you agree with that? If you're a manager in Google working on Gmail or an engineer, isn't that the way you would think? Would you agree? If you agree, give me a thumbs up. That I will make sure that 20%, the 4 or 5 features are always in focus, that I will not compromise on those. I will develop new things without these 20% suffering. Right? So the Pareto principle is actually that. So it also, you will not believe this, how important this is. One of the most important mental model, by the way, guys, in critical thinking model. So for example, let's say that I want to invest money as a company on doing things which my customers are asking. So let's say I have many customers, and I'm saying that a lot of our customers are asking for a lot of things. I want to decide which of the customers I should do this for, right? How will you do that? How will I decide what customers I should listen to more than the others? How will you decide that? You understand the question? You're working in a company which has many customers, and many customers are asking for many things. I have limited money and time. So I have to decide what customers to listen to more than the others and do things more for them than some of the others. How will I decide that? Remember, we are talking about Pareto principle mental model. How will I use this mental model to decide which customers to pay more attention to? Come on, give it a thought. Not complicated. Think like a person who is making the decision using this mental model. How will I decide? I have hundreds of customers, and everybody is asking for something on the product, some feature, some change. How will I decide who to listen to? What is that data I look at, which is with using the Pareto principle to decide? What is the customers are using and interacting with our products? Sure, maybe, but is that most important to me? Which customer becomes most valuable? So let's say you're running a store, you have a store, and a customer walks in, another customer walks in. Which customer do you pay more attention? Both are your old customers. Which is the customer who is more valuable to you? What is the most important thing a customer does for you? Which customers naturally become more important to you for any business? What customers are more important to you for any business? What kind of customers? Okay, if I am running a store which sells saris, and there is a woman customer, I have two women customers. One woman customer monthly buys thousands and thousands and thousands of rupees of saris. Repeat, yes, Mithila, you're correct. But I may have another customer who is a woman who comes in, but she buys saris maybe worth hundreds of rupees, but not thousands of rupees. One customer spends thousands and lakhs of rupees with me. Another customer spends hundreds of rupees with me. Who is more important to me? The customer who is spending thousands and thousands of rupees with me is more important to me, or the customer who spends hundreds of rupees? Who is more important? Correct. So the customer who gives me more business or profit, right? Which means the customer who buys more from me clearly will be more important to me. So how is the Pareto principle used? In the Pareto principle, I will say which are those on an average 20% customers. Pareto principle is not exact, but almost. Which 20% customers give me 80% of the revenue or profit? Those 20% customers I will first mark, and what they are asking, I'll give more importance and do that, because I want to maintain them. I don't want to lose any of those 20%. If I lose something from the other 80%, maybe it's okay for my business. Well, I have limited money and time, but these 20% are critical because they spend the most money with me. So who do you think I'll do things for more? The 20% or the 80%? Who will I do it for? If I have limited money and time, who will I do it for? Exactly. That is what the Pareto principle does for you. 20% customers, usually for any company, including Google, Amazon, Tata, Reliance, Mahindra, 20% customers give 80% of the revenue. Is usually true. So as you should know what those are and pay attention to those more than the others, right? So in our case study, how will I use it? Right? This is the example I was giving, and I think you guys are well understood now. So if you want to clean your room, or your if you're staying in a hostel, you will notice that if I want to make the room look clean, I don't want to clean everything, right? Maybe the 20% of things are making my room look really bad, and the other 80 are not that important. So maybe like stuff on my desk or the chappals lying all over. If I clean those, the room looks clean. Rather than trying to take care and wiping everything and taking care of the cobwebs, I'll not do all that. I'll focus on the 20% which makes my room looks very nice, right? So you can use the Pareto principle everywhere. So how will I use it in our case study? I will say, what are the 20% customer segments that drive 80% of the revenue? So today I have vehicles which are getting sold 100 cc, 100 cc, 125 cc. So maybe more farmers are buying those, right? So I will say that 20% of the customer segment, which is critical, the farmer segment. So while I build these big vehicles, my farmer segment should not be ignored. And what are the 20% product features? So while I'm building all this, one of the features they love in my vehicle, let's say, is a kick, right? So let's say if my battery goes down, I can kick start. With this premium, if you notice the big premium vehicles today, like Royal Enfield, they don't give a kick anymore. It's only electric start. So I am somewhere, and if my bike doesn't start, how do I do? I have to push it. But my customers love the kick start, so I'll not take that out. So what are the 20% product features? Maybe kickstart is one of the product features my customer like. So I'll keep that. In my engineering, I'll make sure I don't get rid of it. So I have to answer these two questions. Which 20% customer segments drive 80%? So I can make sure I don't touch those customers, compromise those as I'm doing the new things. And in fact, try to sell what I'm doing to these 20%. And the features I will be developing on that new motorcycle, I'll make sure that what my customers love, I don't take them out. The 20% features which 80% of my customers use. That's how we'll use the Pareto principle. Okay. Is this mental model clear to everybody? Give me a thumbs up if it's clear to everybody. Many thumbs ups or many thumbs downs? This is a widely used. The circle of competence and the Pareto principle are very widely used in the industry, guys. In fact, as you give your interviews, look for a job, do your projects, use these. People will be very impressed. Very critical. Okay. So we are almost on time. I can't. So we have 13 mental models. Very, very cool mental models, by the way. First principle, second order thinking, 5 whys, very beautiful inversion theory. We have. We'll pick that up in a separate session. So we'll be visiting all of your campuses at least once, right? To take face-to-face sessions and meet all of you guys, say hello to all of you. So when we do that, so make sure you talk to your college, your coordinator, and have them coordinate with us to decide a date when we can come and meet you guys and do some face-to-face sessions with you, right? So talk to your coordinator, okay? And then maybe we'll do the rest of the mental models. Because another mental model will take more time, so we are almost on time. So let me summarize what we learned today, right? So we learned about the importance of critical thinking, the mistakes which I can make, which will stop me from doing critical thinking. A starting point is doing pros, cons, and data, looking at the right data. But then doing, how do I know what decision to make? So we learned about the compare, contrast, evaluate, analyze, so on and so forth. But then every time I don't want to go through those, there are many, many good mental models already created in the industry to actually be used for doing critical thinking in situations. We learned 2 of them. One is circle of competence and Pareto principle. There are totally 13 to 20, right? And they're all super interesting and super useful. So today, since we are on time, we'll stop here, but I'll teach you the rest when we come on campus or on another online session. Okay. So overall, this topic, its importance, what it is clear. Give me a resounding thumbs up, thumbs down, whichever way, if you understood the whole topic and understood the importance of the topic also. I hope you enjoyed. It is one of my favorite topics, by the way, among many, many. Okay, so we have 5-10 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have based on what we have learned so far. Do you have any questions? Anybody has any question? Any question is fine. Or if you have generally any question, not on this topic, but any question at all, I'm happy to answer that also. Does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay. All right. So yes, Aram. Rajaram, I think you raised your hand. Do you want to speak? Okay, let me open the speaker, this thing also. 1 second. turn on the microphone. Okay. If anyone wants to speak now, they can. If they have any question, they can also speak now. You can either type or speak. I have turned on the microphone, which I turn off usually when we are doing the session. Okay. Any questions? Okay, tell me this. Do you think, I mean, this is a very conceptual topic, very useful, day-to-day useful topic. Do you guys think, even before you go, join the industry, do you believe that critical thinking is important when you're in your college life? You can start using some of these things as you do your projects or as you make decisions on many things. Do you guys believe you can use this? Give me a thumbs up if you guys believe. You don't have to wait to join the industry by the way. This is a day-to-day, this is a life skill. Do you guys believe you can use this? The critical thinking models or critical thinking as a concept? Give me a thumbs up if you believe so. If not, then give me a thumbs down. As you go through your challenges, as you do your projects in college, so on and so forth, right? Just think through what we are learned today. Mistakes, same thing. And you can become a good critical thinker. I have a question here. How come in market by developing new product, or we can what factor will consider to come? Yeah, so Alim, it's a very broad, important question that you depend on the market, the product. So when you do critical thinking, it's actually a good question, right? So let's say you want to become an entrepreneur, right? And you have some idea. So you have to first start validating your idea. And for that, you have to do critical thinking. So when you're developing a new product as an entrepreneur, right? You have to look at not only just the product, but you have to look at what are the signals or the data which will tell you. So as we said in critical thinking, right? Pros and cons. Have you come with a product idea because of one of the mistakes you have made and you're not thought critically, right? If you have done all that, then you say, wait a second, why would customers want to buy my product? What are the pros and cons? Is there anything existing in the market today? What data will justify me investing in my time and money in this? And then you use one of these to decide what the product should look like using one of these mental models, right? But you'll have to look at the market. You'll have to look at the customer segments on what kind of customers would want your product and why. You have to look at budgets. You have to look at execution and how long will it take me? What kind of marketing I have to do? What kind of sales I have to do? So there are many factors. But I can promise you this, that whole decision making is using these techniques of critical thinking. But it's a very big decision of making. You want to become an entrepreneur. What to build? How much to build? Who to sell to? Why will they buy? All these are part of the critical thinking methodology. Okay? Clear? Great. So I think that's all we have. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed the topic. And I would highly encourage you guys to use, remember this will make the decks available, obviously. But make sure you use this on a day-to-day basis. Force yourself to use it because it's all practice. And then someday it will become like second habit. You'll use it without realizing it. And I can 100% tell you it is one of the most valued skill in the industry, which will help you stand out against your peers. Very critical. Okay. All right then. Thank you guys. We are done.